Alex, can you hear me?
Greg, can you hear us?
How we doing, Robert? Alex, can you hear me? Greg Conlon. Robert? Robert, it looks like you've got yourself on mute.
Me to them, just a little worried about echo. Can you hear us now, Greg?
Yeah, I can hear somebody. Who's talking? Alex?
Robert.
Oh, Robert.
Oh, he can hear me. Okay, good.
Hey, we're in business.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Can you hear Alex now too or not?
Greg?
Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect.
Can he see us?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
Just Caltrain meets every month, the board, JPB board, and they go over kind of the ridership numbers just to give you guys an update. The ridership is still down about 70% from the pre-pandemic levels. So June this year compared to June 2019, down about 70%. And overall ridership in the fiscal year 2019 compared to 2022 is down 73%. So even though COVID is kind of in the decline, sort of, the ridership is not recovering very well yet for them.
Do they have an explanation for that?
They may. I did not review the report in detail to see what their explanation was, but it's most likely
What was down 20%?
a 73%. The total ridership over the fiscal year. 2022 versus
Oh,
2019.
okay. That's what-
Yeah. Because sometimes the month-to-month numbers can be very variable, so I wanted to also give
Got
a
it.
full fiscal year number.
So that's 22 versus 19.
Yeah, fiscal year 22 versus fiscal year 19. And month-to-month, June 22 versus June 2019 was down 70%.
Unbelievable.
Okay, that's all I had for 5C. Let's move on to 5D.
5D, don't really have much of an update other than the board is scheduled to do their final approval of the EIR, EIS.
Yeah, like
um,
next week or something. like
next
that.
week. And then, as noted in the various articles that were sent, Millbrae has filed against high-speed rail with regards to the station design.
Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none.
I think.
I
yeah,
got one.
Oh,
They got any money yet?
Oh, come on now.
the,
No, I mean, did the taxpayers, did we give them more?
I believe they,
We've gone through billions. I
yeah, the
realize that.
bonds, the last of the bonds that were approved in 2008, that money was released.
Yeah, the last 4.2 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
released.
yeah,
That's right.
okay.
But other than that, it's not clear where any more money is coming
Oh,
from.
good.
Did you have a
Um,
question or a comment?
No, not really.
Yeah, I think the last item was, there was the article with regards to some additional oversight.
Yeah, that was part of the budget deal is they would be required to have an auditor or something like that to just look into practices and what they've been doing, how they can improve, things like that, but
The other probably works for high-speed rail or Simmer, of course, you know the drill. Okay.
Are all the lawsuits that we were related to overdone? And,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
One appeal was not.
In a
was
word,
not-
yes, yeah. There was, what, do you want me to comment on it now? There was some,
you go ahead.
the last appeal to appellate court was that based on our claim that they were misusing the bond monies by using it for various projects in north of Southern California, which were not directly high-speed rail related. And the town was part of that lawsuit. We appealed that to the Supreme Court. We had some hopes that the Supreme Court might actually take the case because they asked for more information from both parties. They received additional filings. Supreme Court declined to take the case. So that's the end of it.
And what was the decision at the appeals court level?
It just, it agreed with the court below that there was no violation of the bond act or of the US, of the California Constitution by using the bond monies as the legislature had said they wanted to use them. And
After changing the original language.
after step, right.
Yeah.
And
They
then
changed the original law or they changed the initiative?
they changed the use of the funds from what we believe was specifically defined in the initiative. And then after that was all done, then the legislature, which had been holding out of releasing the last for some $1 billion, which the governor wanted released for use in the Central Valley, they reached some sort of arrangement and the legislature agreed to let that be done.
So all systems are go.
You want to call it that?
They got a little bit more money, but they need a lot more money.
Yeah,
And
they're a couple $100 billion short. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
How many?
Well, for building a real complete high-speed rail system as originally proposed to the voters, my guess, they say they need $100 billion. I say they need at least 200 billion.
And I think 200 billion is cheap when they start to try and tunnel through the Tehachapi's down by the grapevine. Nobody knows what's in there. They said it could take 30 years to do the tunnels.
Pacheco's
idea.
no pushover either.
Okay.
Right?
The Pacheco Pass is no pushover.
Oh,
either.
no, no,
We're gonna
absolutely
have a
not.
lot of
Yeah.
Problems there.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Pelosi hasn't got that done.
Okay, let's move on to 5E. Because we revisited this many times and probably won't get anything else solved.
Okay, so with regards to 5E, which is rail activities, I'll start that off and then I know the chair has some additional items. And so the biggest news is that the city of Menlo Park has engaged a consultant to evaluate what it would take to establish a quiet zone through Menlo Park. It's anticipated that that'll take them about a year to get through that evaluation. They'll be looking at all the crossings in Menlo Park and potentially with partnership, a couple in Palo Alto. So
Yeah,
Did they designate the quad gates?
what they are doing is they will be evaluating each of the crossings to see what they need to do. So there is no prescribed answer at this point with regards to the types of improvements that would be needed. Each intersection is different. Some have medians, some have other barriers, some traffic controls, et cetera, with regards to traffic movement, preventing left turns near the intersection, near the crossings. So their consultant will be doing a full analysis of the different crossings. There is in the high-speed rail plan, they have quad gates at every crossing. But this study, just like what we're doing, is intended to kind of see what can be done either in advance of that or otherwise to try and implement that quiet zone.
and also get a cost estimate too, which
Yeah.
probably will be based a lot on what we're doing at Watkins. Maybe that's why they're
Yeah.
taking a year.
Do you know the name of their contractor?
Kimley Horn,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. it was-
are they upstanding?
Yeah,
Vendor?
they know that business.
Okay. And the one intersection they're looking at in Palo Alto is Palo Alto Avenue. So
I'm sorry, Palo Alto.
Palo Alto Avenue,
Oh.
that the one right before
yeah,
University.
yeah.
And that's separate enough from the ones in Menlo Park that it can kind of be on its own. The other four intersections in Menlo Park are very close to each other. So they can't just quiet zone one of them. They all kind of have to be quiet zone together because they're just too close for the horns to do the four horn blast. And they say you have to do all four. So
Palo Alto Avenue, the one up by the creek, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most people don't know it's called Palo Alto
Yeah,
Avenue.
that was right.
It's only a little bit and
I've
then
lived here for 60 years.
Yeah.
You know, I should know better.
There's a sign there when you drive by.
Yeah, it should
Really
be too.
alert.
I always thought it was talking about the tree.
El Palo Alto.
Yeah, I know it's a tree. Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of Palo Alto, they were doing studies to look at all sorts of things through their town. I mean, they had.
Yeah.
I called Pat Burt, but I never heard back from him. I think they decided to do two grade crossings down the line, but I don't think they dealt with anything around the station and at the tree.
Yeah, they were holding off the station, what to do there, and focusing on the other three intersections in Palo Alto. It's been very contentious over what to do. Some people want to close it, some people just want bike ped to let through, but if you close the intersection, the traffic's going to go somewhere else, and so other neighbors are not happy about it. So it's been very difficult for that community to decide on which one everyone likes. So that's why it's hard for them to come
But
to.
they got a lot of money from the state. I mean, from the sales tax. So I don't know how much that is, but it was something.
Yeah, that the sales tax will have to be split with Mountain View and Sunnyvale, and so that's one of the difficulties too, because those two communities also want to get as much as possible from the Santa Clara sales tax that was passed to help fund these grade separations. Especially because Palo Alto is also behind both of those communities in terms of what they want as a community approved plan. Just a few more items about the Menlo Park. they're paying about 150,000 for that study. So, of course, part of it's split with Palo Alto for their part of the study. That's about it.
150,000?
Yeah.
Cheap.
Okay. I thought you were going to say that was expensive.
Oh, I
Okay.
mean, I don't know. I have consulting projects for $150,000. It doesn't involve 4 intersections and what to do with them.
Any questions or comments from the public or from other members?
Well, I missed some of the beginning. I don't know why. I started at 10 minutes to 6 and it took me 20 minutes to get in here, but I'm not sure if part of it was probably my fault. I couldn't figure out what I was doing, I think. So I don't know what happened at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, I can provide a recap after we get through the rest of the agenda.
Oh, I thought we were. I'm sorry.
Well, you didn't miss the best part, 5F, Rail Committee designation. So Robert, can you please introduce the topic?
Sure. So we alluded to this at the last meeting that in the council conversation regarding appointments to the different the different town committees, there was the idea raised as to what designation the rail committee should have given some of the changes in the town's rail policy and other activities that have been ongoing. And so it was suggested that the rail committee's designation may evolve, and that would be rather than a full council appointed committee that reports to the council, that at some point the committee's designation may change to that of a not official town committee, but one that is adjoined to the town, similar to the tree committee, wherein topics of importance to the town are discussed and raised to the council, but not with as much staff support and not an official liaison. Council members can be invited to attend. What the change in designation does, and it's summarized in the report, is that there are a few differences between an official town committee and a town-sponsored committee, wherein the biggest differences would be that if it is as a town committee, the members are appointed by the council through the application process. The meetings are public and we record them. It's subject to the Brown Act, including noticing of the agenda and all actions being public actions, as well as limitations on conversations between the committee members with regards to items under the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee having to be less than a quorum. With that independent committee, it's self-governed, can have as many members as the committee desires. The rules of that committee are decided by that committee. There not being a town committee, it's not subject to the Brown Act. The preparation and adherence to agendas, et cetera, would be up to the committee as to how they do that. As I alluded to, staff support would be reduced somewhat, meaning that I wouldn't be preparing agendas and minutes. I would likely be attending meetings to provide staff support and get feedback. But I wouldn't necessarily be leading the meetings. Or I'm going to say the chair leads the meetings, but my level of involvement would drop a bit. Happy to provide input as to what the town's working on, what the town's doing, and hear what the committee has to say and relay that. But it's a bit different in terms of how that works versus how it is now.
So I just want to say, as when we're starting this discussion, for all the members to think about what role do we want our committee to have in the next few years? And that role should naturally evolve into how it should be composed and, how we should be running it. If it's limited what we're doing into the future, then, maybe we should go to that independent route. But if we as committee members and volunteers have more initiatives that we think are of importance to the town, then, and we need staff help to help work on those, then we should continue on as we are. So that's, go
And
ahead.
so I just have one other interjection. So the council basically, before making any sort of decision, wanted to reach out to the rail committee so that the rail committee can have a conversation about which direction, as the chair said, the committee would like to go. If there are any particular concerns one way or the other, so that it can be raised to them so that they understand that as they deliberate.
I heard about this first from Rick DeGolia a while ago.
Mhm.
And he seems to somewhat be in favor of turning us into an independent committee. I think if we said, no, we want to stay a full-fledged committee, I don't think he'd fight about it, but he thought it was maybe the right thing to go in this direction. And so I guess my question was, what's the benefit from his standpoint? It's less council member time. These guys have a lot of committees to go to. It's less of your staff time. Is there anything else?
We can
I
break the
think
Brown Act.
No, I'm talking about why does the
No, I
council
understand. I
seem to
understand.
want us to go in that direction?
Well,
agree.
I think it's really a measure of, I'm going to say, when I started with the town, the rail policy issues that the town had were quite significant. Some of those have kind of gone away with the agreement that we have with Caltrain, the closure of the station, the pending implementation of the Watkins Avenue crossing improvements. Those are all things that kind of are changing. The efforts that we're going to have to put in the future. So right now, we're working actively with Caltrain with regards to the crossing improvements. Once those are implemented, our goal is to establish the quiet zone. After that's all done, our interactions with Caltrain on rail are going to be, I'm not going to say non-existent, but significantly reduced. The issues that we have with high-speed rail, however, are still going to remain. So the thought process, as I understand it, is as our town focus on rail kind of diminishes, that's kind of an opportune time this may be an opportune time to start evaluating the role of the committee.
So let me interject something here. I instigated this committee 19 years ago in 2003. And my primary reason for creating it was because of high-speed rail. I was concerned about high-speed rail coming through the corridor, and I naively thought at the time it was just going to be a simple matter of how do we accommodate it. Certainly, we put in viaducts and, crossings and so forth, without realizing how significant an impact an actual high-speed rail train through this corridor would really have. And I think we even had a different name for the committee when it was first formed. I think it changed over time. We didn't have a rail policy, so that was developed over time and it changed over time. Now the situation with Caltrain has changed. That wasn't the primary reason they tried for the committee, but it was on the agenda. And the relationship with Caltrain has changed dramatically with the closure of the station. They just run through the town. In my opinion, we get none of the benefits of Caltrain and all the deleterious aspects of it, even if we do have a quiet zone. But that's done, and it's not going to come back. high-speed rail has spent all the money that it has, or is spending it, and it's not being spent right here. I mean, I don't know anyone that believes we'll actually ever see a high-speed rail train running the length of California. But, you know, some people may still be dreaming that. They'd have to come up with a lot more money and to do it, obviously. So I certainly don't see it happening in any reasonable time frame. So I guess my thought is that a lot of the reasons for the formation of the committee have gone away. Nevertheless, we still have the rail line running through there, and there are still people dreaming of high-speed rail. So I'd like to ask a couple more questions about like some of these other committees. I'm surprised to see there's only one other independent committee. But if I could go ahead and just ask you a couple of questions, Robert, do you know how many members are on the tree committee, and how often does it meet?
I believe it meets monthly. And as far as the number of people, I'm not sure. They do have their own website. One of the benefits of the tree committee, the way that it's established, I believe it may also be a 501 or charity where they can accept donations and whatnot so that they can fund different programs as well.
Is Marion Oster still involved with it?
I don't believe so.
No.
I think Mary Lou Timpson is, and there's a few others. I can pull up their website. Sally is the liaison for the committee.
Jim, isn't it the original purpose was a high-speed rail? And in spite of your pessimistic view as to it ever happening, the court seemed to disagree with you, and that they allowed the legislature to pass laws to spend money far in excess of what the original initiative authorized. So I just
No, that's not, Greg, that's not correct. They allowed the money to be spent for reasons that we alleged were not related to high-speed rail. Or rather, were not related to the high-speed rail proposal as put to the voters in 2008. They're not.
Doesn't get funding through the credits. What do you call it? The utility
cap and
credits.
trade.
Yeah, the cap and trade.
Well, I think they're using that to pay the bonds or something. I'm paying interest on the bonds. I'm not really sure.
Was there anything you found on the tree?
So they do meet. They generally meet the third Thursday of the month at 4:00 in the afternoon. And they do not have the makeup of their committee online.
Now, who are you talking about?
The tree
committee.
Oh, the
Does
tree
it say
committee.
what it does? With what's the purpose of it?
Well, they're a volunteer organization. They really are involved in discussing tree issues. Like when we were doing modifications to the heritage tree ordinance, I think they provided some input to staff on that. They're involved in Arbor Day events and other things. They did they created the tree walk and the tree walk brochure for Holbrook Palmer Park, which was issued last year. And so they hosted a couple of events around that, having somebody lead an organized tree walk. They have like I said, the brochure for a self-guided tour available as well. I think on Earth Day, they did another tree walk hosted. So like the rail committee is focused on rail, their focus is on trees.
And some of these, like the Bike Ped Committee, Environmental Programs Committee, do they all meet monthly or regularly?
Most meet every other
Bi-monthly.
month.
Bike peds bi-monthly.
The Bike Ped Transportation Committee are every other month. The one that is, I say, the Planning Commission meets every month, but I think most of the others are every other month.
Go ahead,
I think I missed the part of the meeting about the high-speed rail, what was the comments made at that time?
I think Robert will recap that after the meeting. Yeah, there wasn't that much on there, but.
Well, because I
Robert-
mean, that is the purpose of their committee is a high-speed rail. And I just wondered whether the high-speed rail thinks that we have a purpose and that they're communicating with us.
Well, yeah, I'm not advocating for one form or the other. I'm just, recapping what the history was. I think there's some benefit in having the rail committee continue in some form and not just disappear, because it is important to have someone that some group that pays attention to what goes on rail related issues, including high-speed rail. But it only, it's only you gotta have committed members that are willing to pay attention to those things. So
I'd like to give Paul a chance to, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to raise a couple of other issues. As Caltrain gets their electrified system going and begins to increase the amount of rail traffic, we're going to have a heavy impact on the crossing delays at grade crossings throughout the system. There's also a question about the constant morning time process, which I'm not sure where it is right now. I haven't had a recent update from Caltrain, but they have potential problems in their lap right there. And I think for the rail committee to bow out so that we don't have an opportunity to weigh in on these problems would be an error.
Okay. And then go ahead.
I commented as a youngest member of this thing that I think would be terrible for this town of Atherton to disband this committee and become just sort of a group. The institutional knowledge of the gentleman sitting in this room regarding the rail situation in this town cannot be overlooked. And just as a protection going forward for the city of Atherton, I agree with everything Paul said. Just because it appears to be over at this point does not mean that 2 days from now, something else is going to come out of these wackos in Sacramento or somewhere else that's going to impact this town. So once again, as usual, I'm willing to shoot my big mouth off. I should say, should keep and be a committee. And not just a little coffee clutch that we could have at the library or at Baroni's or even at John Malbash's.
Our carpaccios.
Or Jim's or mine. So that's my comment. And I haven't been on the committee long enough, but I think it's very important this town that we have an official committee in this town to help protect this town from anything that comes up or try to. Your comment.
Well, it seems to me that our function has been, for the last year or so at least, it has been sort of a monitoring function. We kind of keep track of what's going on with the High-Speed Rail Authority. We kind of keep track of what Caltrain is up to. We kind of keep track of what our neighboring towns are doing with regard to the rail line. One of the things that being a full committee might get us is, we occasionally do get high-speed rail people and Caltrain people in here to give reports.
Yep.
And if that request comes as a committee of the council, I think they're more likely to agree. If it's just an independent group that's interested in trains, maybe less so. But my other concern, I guess, is do all of us sitting here have the discipline to keep this going? If we get out from under sort of a structured meetings every couple of months, and I mean, I'm not trying to make Robert's life miserable for him, but the fact that he creates the agendas, creates the minutes, we have a liaison and everything, I think imposes a discipline on us to stay involved. And seems to me possible, maybe even likely, that if we become just a independent committee, just a group of people that gets together and thinks about the train issues, that it could simply disappear.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And I would hate to see that happen. I think there is a continuing monitoring function, and I think maybe the council doesn't think it's of great value, but it seems to me it ought to be that if we see something going on that they should know about, we bring it to their attention. We could do that anyway, but I think the formalism is useful.
Well, the electrification is going to cause challenges, is it not? What's your point, Paul?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there will be challenges from that.
Originally, we were going to be able to have open traffic at Atherton because we'd have those faster trains and they wouldn't have to take so long to stop and start, that they could restart service. But I mean, that's academic at this point, but I just, there's got to be, is there traffic issues that's going to appear that people aren't going to like because of the number of trains?
I think so.
Oh, yes. Well, gates will be down a long time if they ever go back to their 110 trains a day. High-speed rail throws in another 4 or 5 in each direction at rush hour.
Each hour, each rush hour, yeah.
You're saying 110 just in electrification?
No,
I
and
think
with
that
Caltrain.
Caltrain had 110. I think
Yeah.
with COVID, they cut back to 90 or something.
Yeah, it's 70, maybe
Maybe
90,
some
yeah,
number,
something like that,
less
yeah.
than 110, but it was 110. And I mean, I can count every one of them from my bedroom. I think.
And what is the electrification plan? More trains or less?
I don't think electrification has much to do with the number of trains. I
Well-
think it's ridership that
Yeah,
governs the number of
the
trains.
potential is that you could have more trains with electrification. That's the potential. Whether they're actually going to be able to do it in the age of COVID, that's another question. But when they started the electrification plan, it was like, okay, we can be able
Start
to
and stop faster.
Yeah, start faster. Yeah, and
Well, there are a few issues that have been sort of dormant for some time. One that has always struck me as being a little ridiculous is the design of the EMU coaches to have both low and high platforms.
Yeah.
Because high-speed rail, as they now write their plans, is going to have separate platforms in all the stations they serve. So the thing is mute. But here we have this fleet of cars that will have this upstairs section that messes up the whole capacity of the cars. But that, that has not surfaced for a long time.
so what I guess one thing I observe as a member is that I think everyone is committed to keep going as a regular committee. If that feels like the consensus to me. Some things that I can note is that we're the only committee with 7 members, and that there was even more people that wanted to join that we couldn't have joined the last time around because we were limited to 7 people and we used to be 10. But and whereas many other committees in the town, they don't even have the full membership available. So we still have a lot of very interested people who want to be part of the committee, and even someone new who wanted to join our committee. I will ask my fellow committee members that if we want to keep this going, we also kind of volunteer our time to keep looking at some of these things and not just rely on Robert. Robert does a lot of things for us, but we as volunteers, if we have an interest in keeping this committee going, we should also participate in that oversight part or the investigative part that we think is important for this committee, and not just wait for updates from someone to come.
No, I'm going to interject that.
Sure.
You all already are doing that. So
I
do
know, but
appreciate that.
I just think that just the past few months, or maybe the last year, we have been hearing a lot from you. You have been providing us a lot of updates, and I'm just encouraging everyone, to participate more. If there's strong interest in different topics, then go ahead and pursue it, and I'll be happy to put it on the agenda if you guys want to present something like the good old days, right?
All right. So once you're done, I'm going to recap some things because ultimately I'll be drafting a report to the council with your feedback. And so if you want to continue, that's fine. And otherwise I can recap what I've heard.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So as Chair, you indicated that it appears that pretty much most members of the committee believe it important that it stay as a full committee of the town. for a number of reasons. But even though some of the issues that we've had in the past have kind of dropped off of committee of the town's radar, things are diminishing in some regards, other things are increasing. And so high-speed rail still remains a concern. That hasn't changed. Though there's no longer a stop here in town, there still are impacts of Caltrain to the town that we still need to be on top of.
Safety
We're
things.
still working on the Watkins crossing, the eventuality of the quiet zone extension. But as Member Jones has indicated, with electrification, as that comes online, there may be a host of impacts that we're going to be dealing with. And we want to have a committee there to kind of stay on top of that.
Yeah.
I do have, oh, and then there's the comment about making sure that we continue to have formal dialogue from Caltrain and HSR with regards to updates and presentations, that sort of thing. And so having a full committee assists with all those things.
Question for staff. Is there any requirement that a formal committee have to meet at least bi-monthly, or can they meet quarterly?
It can be reduced to quarterly. The real issues are going to be how often the committee needs to meet to keep on top of the things that it keeps on top of, and whether that is business plans, environmental reports, when electrification comes online, how often we collectively need to talk about those impacts to raise those to council.
Okay.
And so, part of those impacts are, as it comes online, as Member Jones indicated, it's, everything from how long the gates are down and how that's impacting things, traffic impacts, and the things that we don't know about yet.
Yeah. I mean, when things do come up, such as when we needed to provide comments on the EIR or the DEIR, it was, we just called a special meeting. So, it can be called ad hoc if we needed to. I'm just wondering what my fellow committee members feel about changing the cadence of our meetings, or should we keep it bi-monthly?
I think bi-monthly makes sense to me. It
Okay.
keeps us.
Yeah, my month.
Yeah,
More or less
as
on
the
track.
concern that I'd have is if you
Earlier.
dropped it to core, I'm not suggesting that you don't, I mean, you can.
Yeah,
decide
I just wanted to
recommend what you want. The concern that I have with quarterly meetings is it's a long span in between, and there may be a whole bunch of things. And you see that, I've started adding the articles and things that come up and we send out. That list is going to just balloon.
Yeah.
And you'll find that the meetings may get longer too.
We're used to it.
Yeah, so, but I think my personal opinion, not that it matters much, is I think bi-monthly is a pretty good rhythm.
Okay. We'll keep it bi-monthly. Okay. I think we have the consensus.
Okay, so did that summarize pretty much where you all are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Greg?
Well, I would just emphasize the electrification, because I think the council won't, like Jim mentioned, the high-speed rail is so far in the future that it's not immediate where the electrification is. And the points that Paul made on what the impact of the electrification might be would be good to give the council an idea that things are happening that we need to address, i.e. electrification.
Okay, so I'll be preparing a staff report. I may run it by the chair or the vice chair to kind of get feedback to make sure that I've covered the items.
Okay.
When it does come before the council, I'm hoping to send you all a notice. You are obviously more than welcome to attend the council meetings, as some of you do on a regular or on occasional basis.
I'd like to make one more comment.
Sure.
I thought the institutional knowledge that these gentlemen have needs to be stressed. These guys have spent years
Okay.
doing this stuff, and if something new came up and there was a whole new bunch of people in a coffee shop, they wouldn't have a clue as to what any of the four of you could provide information on. And I think that's very important for the
Mhm.
town that that institutional memory be preserved.
Okay. We'll include that.
You're gonna eat that?
This will come up at what,
I'm gonna
the
eat it.
September council meeting?
That's my understanding is that it's likely going to be in the September meeting.
You're on your own. I'll be in Budapest.
Depending on how that calendar looks, understanding that this month the council is dark, if they may push it out. But they wanted to be sure to reach out to the committee to make sure that the committee had an opportunity to have a conversation and provide feedback to the council before they deliberated on it. And then Chair, I don't know if you want to see if the one member of the public wants to provide it.
Yeah, sure.
Feedback.
Are there any members of the public that want to provide comment to this agenda item? Seeing none. So shall we move on to item 6? Are there any committee or staff member comments? Robert, I'll let you go first if you have anything.
No, I was going to recap some stuff for Greg, but I'll wait till after.
Yeah. Okay. Any committee member?
I was thinking about the stuff that we monitor and the organizations we try to keep in touch with. And is the Community Coalition on High-Speed Rail still active? And is there any reason, benefit for some kind of communication? Or I mean, I was just making a
It's
list.
Still active. CCHSR is still active at this point. It's, but it is considering its future as well. Having lost the last appeal on our challenge to the use of high-speed rail funds, there are some people that think it should continue and maybe start to focus on Caltrain, but Caltrain was never specifically our issue. So I'm not sure which way it's going to go.
Any other comments? I have one comment. If any of you want to propose a topic for an upcoming meeting, just feel free to send Robert and I an email and what the topic is and a short summary, and we'll agendize it. As long as it's related to rail in some way, I'll make sure it gets on the agenda. And then we'll move on to number 7. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Future agenda items? Well.
You've just covered that.
We just covered that.
Okay.
I haven't had enough time to think about it.
Okay, well, I'll give you another 2 months. Our next meeting is October 4th. And do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, all in favor, it sounds like.
Aye.
Okay, see you guys in a couple of months.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
You raised about the number. of
Greg, I
Thanks,
take
Greg.
it you're not going to
concerned about.
join me at Carpaccio's tonight.
They're talking like.
I think I better not. I'm losing my voice
How's your
and
face?